Welcome, deep divers. Have you ever found yourself sort of caught in that conversation, maybe even just in your own head, between this feeling that, wow, the world seems to be really going downhill, versus maybe this other voice, maybe based on some data you've seen, suggesting things are actually, well, getting better?
It's a huge question, isn't it? That feeling of decline versus maybe a more optimistic take.
Exactly. Is humanity sort of fundamentally declining, or are we actually, maybe against the odds, progressing? We get so many headlines painting a pretty grim picture.
Every day.
But there's this other narrative, this data-driven one, that really pushes back against that pessimism. And that's where we're heading today. We're doing a really deep dive into the arguments of psychologist Steven Pinker, especially from his big book, The Better Angels of Our Nature.
Right. Pinker's core claim, and he backs it up with just tons of evidence, is that violence has actually been declining over the long haul. Millennia, even.
Yeah, it feels almost, I don't know, counterintuitive. Given what we see, he argues we're living in increasing peaceful times. It's a huge idea, especially when this news cycle tells us something very different,
And that's the jumping off point for us, really. If Pinker's right, if the data shows this decline, then the really big question becomes why? What's behind it?
Exactly. Not just the politics or economics, which often get discussed.
No, we want to go deeper. What about those inner human things, like reason, empathy, self-control, those better angels he talks about? And what about, the sacred? Does that play a role?
Right, because this isn't just about numbers on a chart. For you listening, this is about what this trend might mean for us, for the human spirit itself.
And our potential. Are these angels something we can actually cultivate, strengthen?
What does it mean for how we live, how we interact, if there's maybe some deeper spiritual evolution happening?
And to explore all this, we've pulled together a really fascinating mix of sources. We're looking at ancient texts, the Bhagavad Gita, Dhammapada, Upanishads, the Torah.
Wow, really going back.
Oh, yeah. And Christian mystics like St. John of the Cross, the Cloud of Unknowing, then jumping forward to modern spiritual thought. A Course in Miracles, Conversations with God, The Untethered Soul.
Plus philosophy, like Marcus Aurelius.
Definitely. And then tying it all into contemporary research, Pinker himself, obviously, but also people like Michael Pollan on consciousness, Bessel van der Kolk on trauma. It's quite a range.
So our mission today really is to see if these spiritual insights can help explain the better angels Pinker finds in the data. And crucially, can we have this optimistic, data-driven view of progress and still make room for the sacred? Or maybe do they actually point towards each other?
That's the core question. Let's get into it.
Okay, so section 1, this paradox, right? The data versus our lived experience and why we need to look for these deeper forces.
Right. First off, you really have to acknowledge Pinker's data. The Better Angels of Nature is just packed with it. He shows, pretty convincingly, I think, this long-term drop in violence.
Yeah, he uses specific examples like rape and homicide rates in the U.S. dropping significantly between the 70s and the late 2000s.
Exactly. And he doesn't just look at recent decades. He uses bioarchaeology, looking at skeletons from prehistoric times, to argue this decline goes way, way back. It's not just a modern blip.
It's a huge historical sweep.
It really is. And it fits with other thinkers like Ben Wattenberg, who famously said, the good news is the bad news is wrong. It's sort of pushing back against this default assumption that everything's always getting worse.
A necessary counter-narrative, maybe.
I think so. It challenges us to look beyond the daily headlines, beyond our immediate anxieties, and see this, well, maybe broader positive trend in human behavior over centuries.
Okay, but here's the tension, right? Because even with all that data, our history books, our stories, our own experiences sometimes, they're just full of violence, brutality, conflict. It's not a smooth ride down.
Not at all. That's the crucial nuance. You read something like Black Elk Speaks, and it's just visceral. Fire Thunder talking about the attack on the wagons.
Oh, yeah.
How the soldiers had these new guns loading from behind, and the sound was like tearing a blanket. The sheer terror of the ponies, the dead warriors and horses everywhere.
Horrific.
And then Wounded Knee. That image of the one long grave of butchered women and children and babies, that's not data. That's raw human suffering. It shows how technology can just amplify destruction incredibly quickly.
And these kinds of accounts aren't isolated. You find them in ancient texts, too, texts that are foundational for many people.
Absolutely. Look at the Torah, the story of Simeon and Levi avenging their sister Dinah. They go into the city and slew all the males. It's brutal, calculated revenge.
No holding back.
None. Or in the Common English Bible, King Ahab wanting Naboth's vineyard. He doesn't just ask nicely. He plots, gets Naboth killed, and takes the land.
And then faces judgment for it.
Exactly. Elijah confronts him, tells him dogs will lick his blood in the same place. It's about greed, betrayal, the dark side of power. Even C.S. Lewis, in a totally different context in The Great Divorce, describes this almost comical but still telling scene on a bus where quarrels just boil over, knives and pistols come out.
Even if it's strangely innocuous in that setting.
Right, even then it points to that human tendency towards hostility, that readiness to fight, even over seemingly small things.
So we've got Pinker's downward slope on one side and these incredibly vivid, often awful reminders of human violence on the other. How do we square that?
Well, I think the key is that even if the rate or scale of certain types of violence has gone down statistically, and that's a big if for some perspectives, the potential for violence, the capacity for cruelty, that seems to remain. It's part of us.
A shadow aspect, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we need to look beyond the stats. What helps us overcome those patterns? What are the inner shifts, the psychological or maybe spiritual mechanisms that allow for peace, for empathy? It's got to be more than just laws and economies.
Right, so it's not just what happened, but the why and the how. Which brings us back to these better angels. Reason, empathy, self-control. Are they just, evolutionary programming or something?
That's a fantastic question, especially when you think about values and motivation. Nick Vostrom's work on AI and superintelligence is really interesting here.
How so?
Well, he argues an AI could get incredibly good at understanding what we want, our intentions. But the really hard part, maybe impossible, is making sure it's actually motivated to follow those intentions the way we mean them.
So it could understand but just not care.
Precisely. It could know exactly what we meant and yet be indifferent to that interpretation. And that highlights something uniquely human, doesn't it? Cultivating values isn't just about understanding rules. It's about feeling them, internalizing them, developing this intrinsic motivation. It's an organic process, not just coding.
That really puts the focus on our inner lives. Okay, so it's section 2. Reason and self-control. Cultivating that inner peace.
Right. Let's start with reason. We often think of it for external stuff, science, logic problems.
Building things, fixing things.
Yeah. But many traditions see reason as crucial for inner governance, self-management.
Like Marcus Aurelius.
Exactly like Marcus Aurelius. In his meditations, he talks about this methodical, true examination of everything that happens to you. Not just observing, but actively understanding how things affect your mind, and then choosing the right virtue to respond with.
Choosing virtue.
Yeah, he lists things like meekness, fortitude, truth, simplicity, contentment. He basically says, look, external events can't really harm your inner self unless you let them. Vain is all anger at the external things. It's about using reason to manage your internal state, your reactions.
And maintaining inner balance regardless of what's happening outside. That's powerful.
It is, but reason alone, just pure intellect, can have its own problems, right?
Yeah, you mentioned David Brooks on Augustine's critique.
Right, Brooks in The Road to Character. Augustine looked at the Manichees, who had this very neat, all-explaining intellectual system. But he felt it appealed to their vanity, made them cold to mystery, lacking humility.
So reason without wisdom.
Exactly. Intellectual arrogance, maybe. And knowing lots of facts, but missing the deeper truth, the compassion. And that's why self-control, understood as a spiritual discipline, is so vital. It's not just gritting your teeth and resisting temptation.
It's more active than that.
Much more. It's about consciously shaping your inner world, aligning your will with something higher.
Okay, so how do different traditions actually teach this? The methods must vary a lot.
They do, but the goal is often similar. Take Christian mysticism. St. John of the Cross, in Dark Night of the Soul, talks about purgative contemplation.
It sounds intense.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
He describes it as the annihilation of our natural understanding and desires, basically stripping away everything that's not God, ego, attachments, worldly ways of thinking to make space for divine light and spiritual love. He literally talks about the soul swooning as to sin. It's a radical emptying.
Wow. And other Christian approaches.
Well, A Course in Miracles, which has Christian influences, talks about the holy instant where there's no conflict of needs, finding this inner point of unity beyond our usual scattered desires. And general Catholic classics often emphasize becoming humble and lowly in heart, practicing much patience to gain freedom from the bonds of the desires.
Humility seems key.
Very much so. And sometimes it's really radical, like the will slaying, someone like Francis of Assisi, not hating yourself, but completely surrendering your own egoic will to a divine one.
It's a profound reorientation. Does this kind of detachment lead away from the world, though? or back to it differently?
Mostly the latter, I'd say. The detachment isn't from life itself, but from clinging to outcomes, to desires. The goal is usually a pure, more compassionate engagement. You see this really clearly in Buddhism,
Like
too.
in the Dhammapada.
Exactly. It advises you to cherish disengagement. Again, not from life, but from craving. Practice no hoarding of things, yes, but also mental states, fixed ideas. It talks about purifying your actions, being watchful of speech, well restrained in mind, not doing what is unwholesome.
And the idea of no self. How does that relate to self-control and ending misery?
That's central. All dhammas are without self.
It's a tricky concept, but basically it means recognizing that our thoughts, feelings, body, they're all constantly changing temporary phenomena. They aren't a fixed, solid me.
So don't identify with them so strongly.
Precisely. When we think I am angry or this thought defines me, we create this solid self that suffers when things change. Recognizing the impermanence, the not-self nature, allows you to experience things, even difficult emotions, without being totally enslaved by them. You observe them without clinging. That's the path out of misery, the ultimate self-control through awareness.
That's a really helpful way to put it. So not suppression, but a change in relationship to experience. What about yoga and Taoism? They seem less about annihilation and more about flow. Yes, definitely. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras give this incredibly systematic method for stilling the mind, citta-vritti nirodha, stopping the ordinary functions of his mento-emotional energies.
Through stages, right?
Right. Dharana, concentration, like focusing intently on one thing. Then Thana, meditation, where that focus becomes a steady, unbroken flow. And finally, Samadhi, absorption, where the sense of separation between you and the object dissolves. It's a very refined training of consciousness.
And the Tao Te Ching.
That emphasizes intuitive wisdom over just piling up knowledge. Those who come to know it do not rely on learning. It's about direct experience aligning with the Tao, the natural way of things.
Which leads to Wu Wei.
Exactly. As beautifully explained in the Tao of Pu, Wu Wei isn't about doing nothing. It's about effortless action, finding the path of least resistance, neutralizing force rather than meeting it head on.
Can you give a quick everyday example of that? Wu Wei in action.
Sure. Imagine you're stuck on a really tough problem at work, maybe getting frustrated, pushing harder, but hitting a wall.
Been there.
Right. Wu Wei would suggest stepping back instead of just more effort. Observe. Maybe there's a simpler way. Ask a colleague. Reframe the problem. Take a walk and let an insight bubble up. It's working with the situation's energy, not fighting it, like sailing, using the wind instead of rowing against it.
Effortless action from being aligned.
Yeah.
I like that. So how do these ancient ideas show up today in modern psychology or spirituality?
Oh, they're everywhere, often repackaged. Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now talks about how just observing your mind takes energy away from its constant chatter, turns it into presence. He says this actually makes the mind sharper when you do need it, not just a source of noise.
Becoming present.
Yeah. And Sam Harris in Waking Up talks about mindfulness meditation as developing a well-formed habit of attention. It gives you, he says, almost instantaneous relief from getting lost in mental dreams or worries, just coming back to the present again and again.
And Viktor Frankl. His experience seems like the ultimate test of inner control.
Absolutely. Man's search for meaning is profound. Frankl, surviving the Holocaust, saw that people who found or held on to a why, a meaning, a purpose, even just the hope of seeing a loved one again, could endure almost any how.
You who has a why to live.
Can bear almost any how. That inner purpose, that meaning, becomes this incredible source of resilience, a form of self-control that transcends even the most horrific external circumstances.
Astonishing. Any lighter examples? Maybe something from pop culture?
Well, maybe surprisingly, Marie Kondo's life-changing magic of tidying up. It's about clutter, yes, but think about it metaphorically. Reducing your stock, getting rid of excess burdens. The guiding question, does this spark joy? It's a simple, tangible way to practice discernment, self-control, choosing consciously what you keep, what you let go of, based on an internal feeling of alignment or joy. You could ask yourself that about mental clutter too, right?
Right.
What thoughts or worries don't spark joy and could be let go?
Huh? That's actually a great connection, tidying the mind. Okay, section 3, empathy and connection. Moving from inner peace to how we relate to others.
Yes, because peace isn't just solitary, is it? It has to extend outwards. Empathy is maybe the key angel for building peaceful societies.
So how do we cultivate it, especially when people are so different?
Well, Tara Brach, the Buddhist teacher, defines compassion beautifully. not just feeling sorry for someone, but as a quivering of the heart, a visceral tenderness in the face of suffering.
Visceral, embodied.
Exactly. It's rooted in Buddhist ideas like the Bodhisattva's wish. May all circumstances serve to awaken compassion. It's about letting suffering touch you and letting that motivate you to help. A real shift from self-focus to other focus.
And Gary Zukov talks about reverence.
Yes, in The Seat of the Soul, he links reverence for all life to seeing our interdependence. When you truly feel that reverence, he argues, your tendencies toward harming others diminish. He even says someone fully reverent cannot harm life. It's a fundamental respect that naturally leads to nonviolence.
So if empathy and reverence are so natural, so beneficial, what stops us? Why all the conflict and division?
Many traditions point to the same root cause, this illusion of separation, believing we're fundamentally separate, disconnected individuals or groups.
Like in Conversations with God.
Right, it puts it very bluntly. Abandon the concept of separation and most world problems would dissolve. The core message is radical interconnection. What you do to others, you do to yourself. The pain of others is your pain. The joy of others, your joy. The enemy isn't them, it's fear, which creates that illusion of being separate.
Wow. And A Course in Miracles echoes that.
Strongly. It says you can't condemn part of a relationship and find peace within it. Judging someone else shatters your own peace because ultimately they're part of you. It pushes towards seeing all relationships as total commitments, recognizing the other half as part of yourself, part of the whole.
A radical union.
Yeah, and the Tao Te Ching has a similar vibe. The sage sees the world as an expansion of his own self. So why hoard things? By giving to others, he gains more. By serving others, he receives everything. Because there's no real separation between giving and receiving when you see that unity.
This is a beautiful ideal.
Yeah.
But it feels hard, really hard, in a world with so much inequality, injustice, power imbalances. How does empathy work then?
It is hard, and empathy alone isn't enough when systems are unjust. James Baldwin's insights in The Fire Next Time are so crucial here, talking about race in America.
What did he say?
He wrote that Black Americans often understand white Americans like parents understand children, which makes hate difficult. But, and this is the key part he adds, unless he becomes a man, becomes equal, it is also impossible for one to love him.
Oh, equality is essential for real love, real connection.
Exactly. True empathy, true connection requires mutual respect and dignity. You can't just empathize across a chasm of injustice without also working to close that chasm. It needs to be linked to action for equality.
That's a really important qualification.
It is. And even in devotional practices, like in the way of a pilgrim, praying for others isn't just passive well-wishing. It's described as sustaining the unity of Christian love rooted in sincere Christian relationship. It's active relational empathy.
And science is catching up to some of this with mirror neurons.
It seems so. Pinker touches on things like the neural basis for disgust, maybe underlying moral feelings. But researchers like Bessel van der Kolk discuss the mirror neuron system. These brain cells seem to fire both when we do an action and when we see someone else do it, or even feel an emotion.
So we literally mirror others internally.
In a way, yes. It suggests a biological basis for empathy, for feeling what others feel. It makes empathy not just a nice idea, but something wired into our biology. Another powerful angel pushing us towards connection.
A bridge between science and spirit, indeed. Okay, section 4, the sacred. How does this fit into Pinker's optimistic, maybe more secular-leaning view?
This is maybe the deepest question. Does progress based on Enlightenment values reason, science leave room for the sacred? Or does it somehow exclude it?
Yeah, can they coexist?
I think Joseph Campbell offers a great way in. In The Power of Myth, he said something like, all religions were true for their time. Find the enduring truth beneath the temporary applications.
We'll look for the universal essence, not get stuck on the historical details.
Exactly. It allows the forms of the sacred to evolve as our understanding evolves, while recognizing a timeless core. The sacred doesn't have to be static or tied only to ancient dogma.
And what about sacred experience? Michael Pollan's work on psychedelics, and Houston Smith saying drug-induced mystical experiences weren't different from others. That's pretty radical.
It really is. It suggests that profound experiences of awe, connection, ego-loss experiences that can be deeply transformative are valid pathways to the sacred, wherever they come from. It blows open the definition of what counts as a sacred or mystical experience.
So if the forms of the sacred can evolve, and the experiences can come from unexpected places, does this overall decline in violence? Pinker charts suggest something bigger, like a spiritual evolution.
That's the really big, maybe audacious idea. Are we not just getting societally better, but maybe spiritually evolving as a species?
Wow, who talks about that?
Pierre Teilhard de Chardin is fascinating here, a priest and a paleontologist. In The Phenomenon of Man, he saw evolution having a direction, an irreversible increase in quality of consciousness.
Consciousness evolving.
Yes, he saw the universe as a collector of persons evolving towards an omega point, a future of maximum unity in consciousness where the new sphere, the collective mind of humanity, fully awakens. It frames progress itself as sacred, cosmic.
That paints it with a very different brush.
It does. And M. Scott Peck, in The Road Less Traveled, connects individual growth directly to societal change. As we evolve as individuals, so do we cause our society to evolve. People who grow give those fruits back to the world. It's a ripple effect.
And Zukov again.
Yeah, Zukov in The Seat of the Soul states it plainly. The universe evolves toward greater awareness and freedom. Your soul is of the universe, or divine intelligence. This view suggests our better angels aren't just ours, but reflections of this universal drive towards consciousness.
Okay, if we're talking divine intelligence, evolving consciousness, what is the nature of this ultimate sacred reality?
Yeah.
Especially if it's beyond our usual concepts.
Well, that's where apophatic theology comes in, talking about God by saying what God is not, because positive descriptions are too limiting.
Like in Theologia Germanica.
Exactly. That text says, the perfect cannot be apprehended, known, or expressed by any creature. God is the substance of all things, but also unchangeable and immovable. It's a paradox beyond our grasp.
And Erich Fromm agreed.
Yes, in The Art of Loving, Fromm noted that since God represents ultimate reality and our minds grasp reality through contradictions, no positive statement can be made of God. You end up with seemingly contradictory ideas, like God being the absolute nothing, pointing to a reality beyond all our limited concepts.
If the divine is so far beyond us, does that change why we seek it?
It absolutely should. C.S. Lewis makes this point powerfully in The Great Divorce. True spiritual growth, he suggests, is about learning to want God for his own sake.
Not for what God can do for you.
Right. Not as a means to an end, happiness, peace, getting into heaven, but seeking the sacred for its own intrinsic value. It's a shift from transactional seeking to unconditional love or devotion. That shift itself is the transformation.
A profound reorientation of motive. So does this grand, evolving, perhaps unknowable sacred show up in everyday life too? Or is it purely mystical?
Oh, definitely every day. Look at Emerson. In his essays, he found the sacred right here in nature. The blue zenith is the point in which romance and reality meet. For him, solitude in nature, the awe of the landscape, that was a connection to the sacred.
Finding the mystical in the mundane.
Exactly. It reminds us that awe, wonder, connection, these pathways to our better angels, to the sacred, they're accessible right here, right now, in the beauty around us if we just pay attention.
Wow. Okay, that brings us full circle in a way. What a journey. We started with Pinker's, really hopeful data showing violence declining over the long term.
A massive evidence-based case for optimism.
And then we dove into this incredible wealth of spiritual and philosophical thought, exploring how these inner forces, reason, empathy, self-control, might actually be the engine behind that progress.
Yeah, the data gives us the what, but these traditions offer such rich insights into the why and the how. It suggests the decline in violence isn't just about better governments or economies, vital as they are. It's also reflecting something deeper, an evolving human consciousness learning to cultivate its better angels.
A testament to our capacity for growth.
As individuals and maybe as a whole species.
So as we finish up, here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to maybe chew on. If Pinker's right about this progress, this upward trend, what if it's not just random social luck? What if it is a sign of something deeper? An evolving soul or divine intelligence at work, like Zukov or Teilhard suggested?
A kind of inherent spiritual direction for humanity.
Yeah. What if our better angels aren't just our creation, but a reflection of a universal unfolding? If you were to really take that possibility seriously, that sense of a larger purpose guiding us towards connection and peace, how might that change things for you? How might it influence your choices today, tomorrow, how you interact with others, how you see our collective future?
Something to ponder.
Definitely something to ponder.